All right, so we're gonna do some shooting in open shade. And we've already done some shooting in open shade before, but this time we're really focused on doing portraits and also utilizing our reflectors, right? So we're gonna focus on three main directions of light again, just like we did with window light. We're gonna do frontal or butterfly. We're gonna do Rembrandt or loop, and then also split lighting. So as we work with those, we're going to be doing two types of fill as well. So some of the times the fill is going to come from inside the shade, which will just bounce a little bit of light and is going to actually fill in the shadows. And then we're also going to be using it in a way where we're pushing light into the shade, which will then act as a key light or a main light source. And that will then be what's creating kind of a direction. So typically if we're filling from inside the shade, it's going to always be on the shadow side and we'll be adding light to that shadow. Whereas when we are creating the light from outside, it's going to be pushing that light in. It's going to be what's creating the direction of light. So we'll take a look at those two different examples. So let's start from inside the shade. So again, I'm in frontal lighting currently. And so there's not a lot of shadow, right? Like if I look, there might be a tiny bit of shadow on this side and maybe, a little bit below the nose. And, we can't obviously see underneath my chin. So, there's not a lot to need to fill. So with that one, in this case, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our reflector and we're just going to bounce some light under here, right? So mostly you'll just be kind of keeping it there. Depends on where they are, you'll be able to bring that up or down and adjust a little bit. But there's not gonna be a lot that really happens in that frontal because the light's already really nice, right? Same with our silver side. So again, here's my silver reflector. And you can see as I move it back and forth, it's picking up more or less of that light. And so what we want to be able to do is just bring in a small amount of that light. And you may not see a lot of difference. It's going to be subtle in this frontal light. Gold is going to be similar. So again, the gold is really going to start to add some warmth to it. So, as we start to feather that up or down, we should see a little bit of a kick of light inside of there. The black is probably the one that will make the most difference in frontal, right? So again, with the black, what we want is it's going to add some shape to the face, especially since it's so open right now. I'm in open shade, so there's sky kind of everywhere here. So with the black, what you're going to be doing, and what would really be great is if you have two of them. So if you still have some spray paint or you have two pieces of black poster board, you might try creating the tunnel. I'm just going to do it with the single one currently. But as we start to bring this in, you can see that side of my face here now has a lot more darkness, right? And it pulls in so that my main focus is right there, right? So you can see there's without the black and there's with the black, right? So it's really starting to contour the side of my face and narrow the face, right? So if I had one on both of those, it would really start to kind of pull that in and block out some of that light that's just bouncing around over here. So that's going to be our black, okay? Now, the other one is where we're going to actually take light that is out there in the sunlight and push it in. And I'm going to go ahead and just touch the screen here and just kind of double click, boom, boom. That's just going to hold the exposure consistent. So if I take this white card, so here's my white, and it's going to actually have to go out here into the sun, right? So it's going to be a little bit hard because I'm going to have to reach over. But what we want is as it starts to kick up some of that light, we should see that it's brighter, when we start to bring some of that light in. I'll try to stay frontal and not squint, right? But, there it goes darker, there it goes brighter. And that's that light that's getting pushed in. And I want it as centered as possible. So again, it's still gonna have nice, flat, even light, but it should make me a little bit brighter against that background. Okay. So that's our white. Same with silver. Silver's gonna be even more reflective, right? So again, I'm just putting it out here in the sunlight. And then as soon as that light starts to kick up, you should be able to see there's without, there's with, right? So it's adding, a significant amount of light. And again, I'll try to keep my eyes open. And there's without, right? So really look at the eyes, right? Look at that reflection. And then there's a little more brightness in there. Okay. With the gold, it should add warmth, right? So again, oops. So there's without, and then there's with, right? So it's adding you know, all that brightness. And the higher it is, the more we're going to get kind of a downward direction. So try to keep it slightly above where the camera is. It's hard for me with my arm. But the more up it is, the more the light's going to come down, so we get shadows below the nose. What we want to avoid is keeping it low and ending up uplighting. And so then I start to get shadows that are up on top of the cheeks. You know, the only time we ever want the fill card to come from below is when we're inside the shade and then we're just bouncing some light, and it's not the direction of light that we're creating, it's fill that we're doing. So there's our white, silver, and gold. We're not going to use black on the outside because it's not going to do anything, okay, for outside the shade. So those are all the ones for our frontal, right? Now, as we start to move into a Rembrandt or a loop lighting, I'm going to move this way, right? And I'm going to bring the camera slightly over this way as well. That way there's some shadow, right? Let me come a little bit more. I'll bring the camera around to about 90 degrees. There we go. And so now we've got some shadow that's here, right? Now, once we've got the shadow on that side of the face and we're kind of in a loop or a Rembrandt, this side's a little bit brighter. When we go to use the fill, in this case, the fill is still coming from inside the shade, right? So if I come in with my white reflector, you know, what we're trying to do is brighten that side of that shadow, right? So see, it goes darker and then it goes brighter. Okay, so very much like how the window light was working. With the silver, same thing. And I'm against a white background, so I'm already getting quite a bit of reflection off of there anyway. But again, that's going to make this a little bit brighter and darker. Gold should give us even a little bit more. So here's our gold reflector. And you can see it really adds kind of that warmth to it. There's a little bit more yellow kind of in this side of the face now as we start to bring in that reflector. Now again with the black, especially since I have a white background because I didn't want to shoot into the side of my garage, but with this white reflector, it is kicking quite a bit of light. It's acting as a fill. Right, so if we bring in that black fill, you can see, and again, you know, keeping it out of the frame is going to be ideal, but as we start to bring that in and out, it should darken down that side of the face, especially along that edge, if we want more contrast. Okay. Now, for the reflectors, when they go outside, what it's going to actually be doing is it's going to be increasing that direction of light. So if I take my white card and again bring this over to the outside, what I want is for it to hit that light. You can see now that's without the fill, and that's with, right? So it's just kicking in some extra light just to give it a little more brightness inside the shadow or inside the shade. And then, so here's our silver reflector. So there's our silver. And again, if I'm over here, again, in kind of loop and Rembrandt light, as soon as I tilt that and pick up that light, you can see it's adding and opening up quite a bit into those, into those small shadows inside the face. Obviously, if you're having an assistant help you, it's going to be a lot easier than holding it. Okay, so there we go. And then the last one being gold, right? So, and again, the gold should be just more warmth, right? So then there's that yellow gold color coming off of there. Okay. So that's the idea with those ones. And then the last one is just going to be getting into Rembrandt. So again, with Rembrandt, you're going to move in this with split lighting. So we'll move this direction. And again, you're going to start with fill from inside. So, and you probably should move the camera around one last time. So now I'm more in like a split lighting. And again, we're going to be bouncing some of that light, adding some warmth. This is the gold reflector. But you'll do the same thing with white, silver. And then the black should really start to darken down. Again, cut some of that fill from on this side. So if we do want that more dramatic, more contrast, then we'll bring in that black, right? You can see there's quite a bit of fill coming off of there, and now it's going darker, right? And then for filling from the outside of the shade, again, I'll just do it with the white and the silver really quick. But so if I'm there, well, we're trying to just, again, brighten this side of the face. So as we start to adjust, it's hard to get the right angle here. So we can see there's some more light. Move this light slightly. There we go. So without, and then with that fill. So you just got to kind of play with it, adjust. You can see it kind of moving on the background over there as well, as we start to add that light. So there's our silver. Okay. So as you're doing your shooting, work with each of those individually. Start off with, each direction and try playing with white, silver, and gold. You may not be able to do the bracketing exactly, but try to adjust the exposure a little bit up and down just to see what effects you might get. All right, hope that helps you guys, and just send me an email if you have any questions.